In 1963, a man in central Turkey is renovating his house. He knocks down a wall in his basement, expecting to find dirt, maybe rock. Instead, he finds a tunnel. He doesn't know it yet, but he's just found the entrance to a city built to hold 20,000 people. Completely underground, completely hidden, sitting beneath an ordinary neighborhood for centuries, and nobody living above it had any idea it was there. Here's the question worth sitting with. How do you hide a city? Not a bunker, not a basement, an actual functioning city with room for tens of thousands of people, and somehow keep it invisible for that long? This is the story of Derinkuyu, and it's stranger than you think. Let's start with the scale because most people hear underground city and picture something small, a cave system, maybe a few connected rooms. Derinkuyu is not that. Derinkuyu goes down at least 18 levels beneath the surface, and researchers estimate it could have sheltered somewhere around 20,000 people at once, along with their livestock and food stores. 18 levels. That's not a hiding spot. That's an entire vertical city. To put that depth in perspective, the deepest levels of Derinkuyu sit roughly 60 meters below the surface. That's deeper than most modern subway systems. And this wasn't dug with power tools or blasting equipment. This was carved level by level into volcanic rock using hand tools over what was likely generations of continuous work. And it wasn't just living space. Whoever built this thought through everything a real city needs to actually function. There were ventilation shafts running the full depth of the complex, engineered specifically to keep air circulating even at the deepest levels, which is honestly the part that gets me the most because getting airflow right in a multi-level underground structure with ancient tools is a genuinely difficult engineering problem, and they solved it well enough that people could live down there for extended periods without suffocating. Some of these shafts doubled as wells, meaning the same vertical passage that brought fresh air down could also be used to pull water up from underground sources. A single piece of engineering solving two survival problems at once. There were also stables for animals, wine and oil presses, storage rooms, communal kitchens, even what appear to be chapels. This wasn't a place people ran to for a night. This was somewhere entire communities could live for weeks or months at a time, fully self-sufficient, cut off from the surface entirely if needed. So who built it? And why go through all that effort to live underground? The earliest carving into this rock is believed to date back to the Phrygians, potentially as early as the 8th century BCE, but the city was massively expanded later, particularly by early Christian communities living in the region who were dealing with waves of persecution, first under Roman rule and later during various regional conflicts. When staying on the surface meant real danger, going underground wasn't a strange choice. It was survival infrastructure. And here's where the story gets genuinely unsettling in a good way. Derinkuyu had heavy circular stone doors, essentially giant rolling stone discs, positioned at key points throughout the tunnels. These doors could only be opened or closed from the inside, and they weighed enough that they couldn't easily be forced open from outside. If hostile forces made it into the upper tunnel levels, the people below could seal themselves off completely, level by level, essentially trapping any intruders in narrow passageways while the rest of the city stayed protected. It was a defensive system built directly into the architecture. Even the tunnel design itself was defensive. Many of the passageways were deliberately built low and narrow, low enough that anyone moving through them had a hunch forward, which meant an invading force couldn't fight effectively in formation. Meanwhile, defenders who knew the layout could move through their own city efficiently, using the terrain itself as a weapon. Now here's the twist that makes this whole thing even wilder. Derinkuyu isn't alone. It's not even the only underground city in its own region. The broader Cappadocia region of Turkey has over 200 known underground settlements carved into the soft volcanic rock, ranging from small refuge shelters to massive multi-level cities like Derinkuyu itself. And some of these underground cities weren't isolated. There's a tunnel connecting Derinkuyu to another nearby underground city called Kamakli, meaning people could theoretically move between two entire underground population centers without ever surfacing. Picture that for a second. Not one hidden city, a hidden network, an underground region with its own internal roads spanning kilometers, sitting silently beneath farmland and villages that had no real sense of the scale of what was under their feet. Which raises the actual question this video is really about. Why did something this massive stay effectively unknown to the modern world until 1963? Part of the answer is that local residents likely knew about at least some tunnel systems for generations. They'd been used off and on as storage or animal shelter, but the true scale, the full 18-level depth, the connections between cities, none of that was documented or understood until that one wall came down and researchers actually started mapping what was underneath. Even more strange, it's estimated that only a fraction of Derinkuyu has actually been open to the public or fully explored to this day. Large sections remain closed off, either unstable or simply unmapped, which means the complete picture we have of this city right now might not even be complete. So here's the unifying theory tying this together. When survival pressure gets extreme enough, human communities don't just adapt where they live. They're willing to build an entire second version of civilization in a completely different dimension, straight down, engineered well enough to sustain thousands of people indefinitely. Derinkuyu isn't a bunker. It's proof that when the surface becomes unsafe, humans are fully capable of relocating an entire society underground and making it actually work. And weirdly, we haven't stopped doing versions of this. Modern doomsday bunkers, underground data centers built specifically because they're easier to protect and climate control, entire underground research facilities buried for the same reasons. The impulse that built Derinkuyu is still very much alive. We just don't usually need to use it at that scale anymore. Yet, which leaves one genuinely uncomfortable question. If a city built for 20,000 people stayed completely hidden until someone accidentally knocked down the right wall in 1963, what else is still down there that nobody's found yet? How many more Derinkuyus are sitting under ordinary basements right now, waiting for the wrong wall to fall? If stuff like this is exactly what you want more of, subscribe because this channel exists to dig up stories precisely like this one. And drop a comment. What hidden place, structure, or mystery do you want the next deep dive on? I read every single one, and a lot of them become the next video.